go ahead and get started, and please feel free to interrupt me and ask questions or divert. Um, and so my title is Navigating a Rising Tide, Leadership and Technical Advancement. And these are information that you had in the slides. And so in terms of navigating this presentation, I have a personal intro and some technical background. And then I have some career development advice, basically to embrace the technical. I have a little bit of, I wasn't sure what to call it, but I'll say leadership lessons, and it might just be fun leadership things. And I put in the deck some slides that you're not going to see, but they're like an Easter egg in the slides that you send out in case students might be interested. I had, there's about 5 slides that are academic career development information. And so I thought they might be interested, but it's not really part of the talk. So they're hidden in the deck that they could find these. And then I'll connect it up to the Women in Engineering that was asked to be part of the talk. And so here, so when we're giving these presentations, the good advice that people will often give is that you should tell a story. And everybody has a story, an interesting story. And so we have a phrase, a funny thing happened on my way, when you were supposed to go one place and you go another. And in my case, I am an electrical engineer by degree, and I went to university, and I had just been told that if you're good at math and physics, you're supposed to be in engineering. And so I didn't know what it was actually, but I said, okay. And then at my university that I went to, they said, you can major in electrical, you can major in mechanical, you can major in civil. And I didn't know what civil was, and I didn't know how to fix my car. So I picked electrical. And so that made my life. But once I was doing it, I really missed the physics. So I did a second major in physics. And then there was a time, and the whole time though, I was really planning to go into industry. And that was my whole purpose of studying, and I had no thoughts for academia at all at that time. And I had been working at a patent law firm on the side. And so I thought maybe I should go to law school, or maybe I should get an MBA, or maybe I should go to graduate school in physics, or maybe I should go to graduate school in electrical engineering. And I really wasn't sure. So in the US, we have these standardized tests that you take, and they give you a score. And so I thought so I took all the standardized tests, and I thought the tests will tell me what I should do. And so I took the standardized tests, and I did exactly the same on all the tests. And so so that didn't work. So then I said, well, I'd better just apply. Since I don't know, I better just apply and see what happens on the applications. And the deadlines for electrical engineering were first. So I applied to electrical engineering, and then I said, that was exhausting. And so I'm done. And so my decision was made, and that was the end. And then later, I did some work at Bell Communications Research, which is an offshoot of Bell Labs. And I did have a good time there, but both at my graduate work, which was at Caltech, and at Bell Communications Research, I wasn't sure that I was really meant for what we were doing there. And I ended up calling my university and saying, can I change my mind and take this job after all? And so that's my story. For my students, when I teach, we have what's called living learning communities on our campus. And so I make the students we have like a day 0 before class starts when we meet, and everybody has to do one slide. Like, this is your entire whatever you can share in one slide. So here's my one slide for you. And so things about me: I'm a distinguished lecturer in navigation, intelligent systems, sensor fusion, and I'm a leader in IEEE Aerospace and Electronic Systems Society. And so in terms of teaching, I'm teaching Engineering 101, which is a pretty new thing for me, which is sort of introduction to engineering for 18-year-olds for the most part. And signal processing and wireless communications. And I also am very involved in engineering accreditation and criteria. And things that keep me busy are learning, leading, talking, meeting, and traveling. And my traveling is mostly to meetings. And until recently, been traveling to meetings, but now I have even more meetings. I think the day that I was in Alon's meeting, I think I had 3 other meetings that same day. And so I like to give advice, and I still have this desire to connect continually with industry. And so here's some fun facts that 18-year-olds at least think are interesting. And so this is my email, unread emails as of last night. And so I updated it last night. And so right now it says 40,207. But as of last night, it was 40,171 unread emails. I was once a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and people still will see that from time to time and write me about that. And my sole, what you might call domestic skill, is my annual Christmas card. And so I have no ability to cook or do I have 3 children, which you can see in the picture, but I am not the cook in the family. But this Christmas card picture that you see here, I do a new one every year. And they are the greatest cards literally in the world. And I'm very known, and Alon should know the rules. I'm very known for my 3 rules. And I won't even tell you the first 2. Everybody always forgets them. Alon, you could impress me and break in by giving the answer, but I bet you've forgotten them. And the 3rd rule, though, everybody remembers, which is don't be boring. And so I hope you apply that to everything. So in terms of the navigating a rising tide, the title here came, there was a WE Technical Summit last year in Washington State. The Pacific Northwest National Laboratories was organizing it, and they said a rising tide lifts all boats should be the theme for women in engineering. And so to me, they wanted me to talk about a rising tide. And so I said navigating a rising tide, because my distinguished lecture that I most commonly give is about navigation methods. And so you go historically from visual cues to the sun and the stars, to invisible sources of navigation, to speed and time, to beacons, to radars, to inertial navigation, to GPS or Galileo. These type, that's the whole. It originally was just navigation of water, but it's really finding your way. And so if you apply this to navigating your way professionally, you want to be the best at knowing who you are and what your currency is. You want to be aware of others' cues and beacons, and you want to achieve the messages that they're sending you and what brings them in. And you want to achieve in technology, even if you are not a person who blends in with everybody else. And you want to know what's changing, but what isn't changing, and how to lift some boats. And so in technical fields, there are some of us that don't blend in. And so this picture, we have an expression, an odd duck. And so the blue duck you can see in this case happens to be the odd duck. And some of us exhibit insufficiency of averageness in their technical field. So it might be that you're one of a few women, or it might be that you're a person of color, or it might be a different heritage. It might be your age. It might be your country of origin. And some very common but bad advice. It's perhaps well meant and not intended as an insult, or but you, those of us that are not that average will get this advice, and it's the soft skills, or perhaps some particular soft skill, that's important, and that's where you are strong. And so, for example, you should be the project manager instead of doing whatever technical aspect of the project, because that's where you're good. There's also a corresponding theory that many of us have, that that you choose technical and scientific professions because career advancement and opportunities are much more objective and based on real merit in these fields, and they're not subject to personal characteristics in whatever field it is, and insert any particular technical scientific field that you can think of. So two examples might be power systems, communication engineering, data science. Doesn't, like, any of these fields. We really only care about merit in our field, and that's one great thing about us. We only care about getting the job done. And the other side of that coin is that because there is some truth to that, that oftentimes you need hard skills and hard credentials, and they're harder to ignore. And so one advice to women in engineering, or to others, is to be very careful about opting out of getting those type of credentials, and to be very careful about apologizing for, which only emphasizes your lack of certain hard credentials. That's not the best approach, shall we say. So the one problem with sort of what's intended as well-meaning advice is that generalizations about, say, by gender, but it could be certainly in the United States by race, you see it, is that stronger soft skills, if there's an expectation of stronger soft skills, you can do more harm than good just to yourself. It will cause you to question your own credentials, need more approval, failure to negotiate, taking or continuing to take the wrong assignments for advancement, and how you communicate. More startling to me, so I had observed this, but I read what was not really a scientific paper, but I came across it, and it was just like it hit me over the head of how it resonated with my anecdotal experience. And so this is a study that somebody did after he was hearing sort of the same, he was feeling that he was hearing the same thing over and over again in describing female colleagues. And so he collected 248 reviews of 180 people in technology. 105 of them were men and 75 were women. And overall, in this group of 180, 71% contained what you would call critical feedback or constructive suggestions for how to improve. And so women were much more likely, like almost infinitely more likely, to receive soft or subjective criticism. And 71 out of 94 instances of the feedback were subjective rather than the hard credentials. And all of them advocated being softer. Now, for the men, they had a much lower percentage of getting the critical feedback, and when they got it, there were only 2 instances of it being more subjective feedback. And in the one case where it was relatable to the feedback that the women were getting, it was to tell him to be more aggressive. And so women, the actual term abrasive was used critically to women only, and it was used 17 times over 75 reviews, and only for women. Um, Sadly, there was no difference in the statistics between the feedback that was prepared by women and the feedback that was prepared by men. It was just the expectations that were conveyed. And so this, yes, it's wrong. But if I were giving advice, which I am, um, to women and to men, it's to be aware of this different expectations being applied. And so, bringing back, so hard skills as opposed to soft skills help get you in and keep you in. So here's some good reasons to advance your technical knowledge, your skills, and your ability. It improves those hard credentials. It increases your abilities, your confidence, your reputation. Professional advancement and relevance. You staying current, in demand, valued. Advancing the field itself for the sake of knowledge, for the greater good, for your own empowerment. Connecting to, working with, competing against the best and the brightest, and ownership of your own development and prioritizing your own value. And so I just have some activities that would fall along these lines. Now, as opposed to the term soft skills, if you say leadership skills, um, then you win me over. And so, but all the things I listed that were hard skills, so leadership, if you just say I'm a specialist in leadership, I'm teaching leadership, that's considered a soft skill. But if you say you're working on your actual leadership abilities, all these things apply. And basically learning how to learn and seek opportunities to learn and to keep learning, applying that to yourself and to those around you. That's one definition of leadership. So overall, for career development goals, what I advocate is that you set your bar externally rather than internally. And that comes from a lesson that there's a phrase, women don't leave. And this results in a sequence of changes where, and I was actually told this myself in one instance where I didn't get a promotion. And the answer was like, well, Kathleen, where are you going to go? It's San Diego. And so that they could opt for a less qualified person because that would add the person to the mix. Because they're confident that I, as a woman, they didn't say as a woman, but they're confident that I wouldn't go anywhere. And so so you want to strive to be an expert and be aware of what's required at aspirant jobs and aspirant places, even if you're not going anywhere. And you should continue to develop yourself as if you expect to be moving somewhere else in a couple of years. And so sometimes you can make choices on the assumption you're never going to go anywhere else. And then you've created a power structure where you can't go anywhere else. So some enjoyable examples, for lack of a better term that I could come up with this morning, of leadership things that I've been doing lately. I think all of these are pretty recent. But so I'm serving right now on the board of directors of the world's largest technical professional society. I'm connected to the best and the brightest, including those in the distinguished lecturer program that a couple years ago I was the leader of for my society. And I lead the governance of a global organization as the IEEE secretary. And a fun fact is that if you become a fellow or even a senior member, my signature is on the plaque. And so you couldn't do it except for me. And so actually I love that. And I used it as a selling point with the some people like, get it now, and then you can have my signature on it. I'm also really I'm very active in accreditation. And so my most recent international visit was to Spain and in Madrid. And I've been to 7 countries as an IEEE commissioner for ABET, leading teams for various universities. And it's given me an opportunity to get to know and understand some very special and in some ways better ways of doing things, and how how things are very much the same. I also I was recently nominated for an award because I helped define the cybersecurity engineering program criteria, and we also helped redefine overall general criteria that apply in 95 countries. Um, Alon met me because I was the Region 6, and I'm currently the past director of Region 6, which is the Western US, and we have over 50,000 members, and we have the coolest part of the United States by far. It includes America's finest city, and I own Hawaii and Seattle. I still haven't given it up a lot. And I've gotten to, and one of the funnest things I got to do, and I didn't realize that it would be fun. And I think that's a lot of the thing, is that if you look for fun where it can be found. And so when I was running for director, people would mention historic milestones. And I'm not like, I don't consider myself a huge history buff, but it was part of being director to see these milestones. And wow, all I had to do was go to one, and then I realized how important it is to it brings everything together locally. And so they're going to have their first milestone soon. And it all things come together. So we got to have the first San Diego milestone a couple years ago, and it happened that the IEEE president was busy that day, and so I had to pretend to be president that day. And so I got to meet the 2 billionaires that founded Qualcomm. But the coolest part was they said, "Oh, we've met before," when they met, and they had met me before, but I didn't think they'd remember. And so that was super cool. And so, oh, I hid that. I thought I hid that. Okay. So those are my hidden slides on academic outside the box. So if you get the slides, you can go see them, but I didn't want to use up too much time. And so enabling and inspiring the we. So I think it's just important. These are reasons to join we, but there are also reasons to join IEEE or EA Kubo, as all the cool people say. And so you want to become inspired, enabled, empowered, engaged, advancing technically and helping others to advance technically, advancing science and technology, creating new standards, connecting with the best and the brightest, ownership of our development and valuing self. And I would say it's a bargain at twice the price. And that's a reason to join IEEE, but it's also which of those reasons does not apply to joining the Women in Engineering. And so a rising tide lifts all boats. And so what does that mean? And so I don't know if it's a common expression outside of English, but like we can all move up together. It is not a win-lose. I don't have to advance at the expense of other people. Helping somebody else to advance, I advance myself. And so that's the point of the rising tide. And so things that you can do to help others lift their boats. And so, yes, you can be a leader, and you can, and technology in the K through, what we call the K through 12, so pre-university, pre-college, being a mentor, getting a mentor. You need one, and you can be one. I think you really need 2, an internal one and an external one. And applying these lessons. So women engineering dedicated to inspiring, enabling, advancing women in technical discipline. Engagement and community are the vision and the primary goods that we brings to your local technical community. And that concludes my presentation. So anybody has any questions? And here's just some references if you want to look them up and question my wisdom on these points. But so any questions?
Thanks a lot, Kathleen.
Mm.
It's very interesting presentation. I have write down several ideas.
Oh, great.
For myself and to move in the student branch. I think it will be very useful for the student branch. I don't know if somebody has questions to Kathleen. You can ask by yourself, unmuting your microphone, or write down in the chat, and Kathleen will answer you.
I have a question, if you like, while the people is starting to think about. We have, our students are a bit different, as you know. Our students used to have 25 to 65-year-old. Because all of them are working, major part of them are family, and have things in the life there. What do you recommend for them to try to share between the family, the profession, and the activities of student, to having this some part of time for IEEE, starting as IEEE in the future to be a regular member?
Well, so there's a couple of different questions in that, Manuel. So one question that people will often ask me is about like balancing, like, so we have this phrase work-life balance. And truthfully, I think it's a crack. And so I don't think that balance, I don't know anybody that's particularly well balanced, and I'm more of an all-in kind of person. But I think that you have to choose your priorities, and I think sometimes that you can't, even though you could tell from all the things that I do, you would think that I don't know how to say no, and there might be a little bit of that, but you do, things need to become more important and less important. And so one reason that a lot of universities, like my university, takes the opposite approach, that you need to live on campus, and that doesn't work for 25-year-olds to live on campus. But a good reason to live on campus is that it becomes your world, and you are able to focus and to concentrate. And so if you are 25 or older, and 25 is very young, but when you have responsibilities for family, of course your family is more important, but you and your family, you're in this together, and you need to support each other. And so let's have an agreement. My husband and I, for our church, we do premarital counseling, and we'll talk about that, how you build your family together. And your relationship with your family needs to support that. And so if there really isn't support for it, then let's figure out when there will be support for it, and then to dedicate yourself. But if we're all in this together, we could all win together. And sometimes though, like my answer for some people, when they're for example, sometimes people they're living at home and they're not married, they're just living at home, and they're trying to save money by living at home and going to school. And for them, my advice is often, you need to move because you're not, it's not everybody has that. So it can be an advantage that you have the adult concentration and discipline. And sometimes you need to be smart enough to know that you don't have that, and that you need to separate that. So I'm here, I don't know if you can see my house. This is my living room. And so I'm in an open plan in my house. And so it can be difficult. And as you saw in my picture, I have 3 children and a husband. And when we first got married, there's just myself and my husband. And then first there's one child, and then another child, and then another child. And now I'm in the China hutch for my office at this point. And so I just have to yell, I have a, you need to get out of my way. And that's just something that has to be done. And so, I don't know, I guess I'm rambling, but I think you have to make your choices. And so for a while, for me, I can't be at every meeting people would invite me to be at. But I have to choose where's the best place. And so for me, I do it by where am I going to contribute the most? Where do they need me the most? And so sometimes your small children might need you the most. And sometimes they don't need you so much anymore. And there's timing and negotiation and planning. Everything is on for me, my calendar is my most important app.
Oh yes, I believe this thing is that normally you have to be in mind that you deliver some things and you bring some part of your life, but you receive a lot of things there. And
Yes,
this is the interchange, is the balance that you say.
That is, so really that's the balance, is that I don't do anything for what it's going to give me, but then it gives me so much. So by contributing to things that other people are doing, there's a great opportunity. And so I think for IEEE and for other good activities, you can legitimately say, this week I don't have time for it. But maybe, okay, well, when do you have time to contribute? And are you, like, you always want to look externally, not just in the short term immediately around you.
Yes.
I have a question as well. So I'm gonna put on the camera to ask.
Okay.
Yeah. So hello, I am Mateo, and I am from Vigo. So here in Vigo we have IEEE student branch in the university, and we have just started a women in engineering branch or something like that in January. So like a friend is actually leading that thing, and she's not here, so I'm asking in her name. So what would be what would you recommend to us, like as first steps or something like that, to start and to improve our women in engineering branch and that kind of things, like projects or just like advices that you would give us?
Well, so for the women in engineering, and it doesn't have a good name, like, so it's a student branch affinity group, which is a really silly title. But I don't have a better one to give you. And so it's a group, which is a very generic thing to be. So there's two major activities that are very well aligned with the goals. So in my slide deck show here. So this is what, these are sort of the purpose of WE. And WE is different. So in the United States, we have an organization called the Society of Women Engineers, which is much bigger. And the Society of Women Engineers is for all of engineering, not just IEEE. And so a very distinctive difference between IEEE, WE, and Society of Women Engineers or other such societies is that it's for the IEEE disciplines. And women are much scarcer. There are far fewer women in electrical and computer disciplines than there are in civil engineering and industrial engineering. And so the IEEE WE has a unique opportunity to connect that technical side that's unique to IEEE with women where they are scarcer. And so the very best event that our Women in Engineering did in San Diego was a joint event. So this was last year. We had a joint event where we had a panel. And so we did a chapter and the WE. And so we had each organizer contribute one person to the panel. And so the panel was entirely women, but it was a technical panel. And so you enhance the opportunities for those, and you showcase those, and you provide role models with such an activity. You shouldn't have it be all your activity, but that's one good activity. The other side of the we coin is what we call K through 12 or STEM activities, or educational activities pre-college. And so to have, I would say the goal is one activity a semester related to that. We're helping guidance for girls, is for lack of a better term. So there's activities. So one such activity is like you have a workshop where they get to, say, play with Arduinos for the day, and something that's connecting them. Our discipline, whether it's computer or electrical, is less tangible. It's less relatable in a quick cartoon than building a bridge with popsicle sticks. And so there's an opportunity to apply our expertise in a helpful way. There's a project in the United States called Project Lead the Way. And it was intended to connect students at the middle school level, say 12 years old, to engineering in general, engineering and technology. But the result of these good activities of Project Lead the Way is that mechanical engineering went from being 14% of undergraduates worldwide to almost 50% of undergraduates worldwide, with corresponding shrinkage in the other areas. And part of the reason for that is that a lot of the hands-on activities for young people that you don't need any expertise at all to attempt are mechanical or civil things. And so this is a really ripe opportunity for us to develop new activities that serve and advance our technical interest that would work for a week.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we were actually already working on that kind of workshops in the schools, but it is pretty obvious that now nothing is going on. So next year we'll be back.
Well, so I was really surprised. Our local student branch, so UCSD, University of California, San Diego, is a very big student branch. So I am the branch counselor, which is the faculty advisor for University of San Diego student branch. And so it's like 24 people. But University of California, San Diego, which sounds like the same name, they have 500 people. And so they impressed me that last month at the meeting, they said, oh, we had a virtual event. So they're always so superior. And so they had a virtual STEM event. So it's not impossible to do, but if you're just establishing yourself, give yourself a break. We can do it next year. There's no need to knock ourselves out. Let's pick where the best rewards are to be offered.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks for
You're very welcome.
For the answer. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody has more questions to Kathleen? Are you interested in any detail that she shared with us?
I'm sorry, am I interested in, let me look at the chat window. No?
No, we haven't.
Oh, okay. Sorry, what's the question?
No, there is a question.
Oh,
now.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay, are we finished?
if you want, if there aren't more questions, we could close this session. Thanks a lot for your time and sharing all the information and your amazing profile and career.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it was a pleasure to speak with you. And I'm just enjoyed myself enormously. And I can tell you that I learned more about Google Meet this time. I've added on extensions to my Chrome. I welcome this opportunity. So thank you, and thanks everybody. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And so I'm a big LinkedIn user. So go ahead if you're not already. And so thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Katia, and I hope to see you in November. Thank you.
Yes, I hope.
We hope.
I'll see you virtually next month.
Yes.
June
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kathleen. Bye. See you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Always fascinating to hear you.
Oh, thanks,
Bye.
Alan. Thank you. Thanks so much, Pedro. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Everybody, take care. Bye.
Bye. Take care.